Since its founding, Nike has been dedicated to giving athletes a competitive edge in their respective sports through their apparel and, most importantly, their shoes. Today in our talk, we will explore Nike, their shoes, and the developments they've made since their founding. Nike today remains as the world's leader in athletic shoes and apparel. And to introduce the engineering side of our talk, Bennett will come up and talk about basketball shoes.
Over the past 20 years, Nike has revolutionized their basketball shoe design. So today I'm going to touch on different shoes and the significant advances that these shoes represented over the past 20 years. In 1992, Nike came out with the Nike Air Raid. This shoe was designed for an outdoor surface in comparison to most basketball shoes being designed for an internal surface being played on wood. These shoes were designed to be played on concrete, which is why they have such a low and not an arched sole at the bottom of their shoe. Because there was no arch in the sole, it allowed for more contact with the ground for better grip for safety for the players. Also, there's an X strap on the shoe, which locked the player's foot into the shoe and led to fewer ankle injuries while the players were outside playing. The significant engineering advancement that this shoe made for Nike was that safety and support were huge elements that designers took into account when they were designing the new shoes. Later, in 1997, the Nike Air Foamposite 1 was developed. This shoe was actually designed off of the design of a sunglasses case. On the outer layer here is a layer of Evafoam, which is a type of soft material. Using this material, it was very lightweight, but it also added a very core and hard structure for support for the player's foot. The advancement that this shoe made was it really incorporated how important different materials were when designing a basketball shoe. In the same year, in 1997, Nike designers came out with the shoe, the Nike Air Flightposite. When the shoe was designed, the designers wanted it to feel like an extension of the human leg. So that's why it's a relatively high-top shoe, and it's relatively sleek looking. On this shoe, there are no laces. It is only one zipper, which kind of adds to the feel of it being an extension of the human leg. The advancement of this shoe is it changes the views of designers into making their shoes more aesthetically pleasing instead of only based off materials, support and safety, and things of that nature. So present day, now in 2012, they have the 2012 Nike Hyperdunks. These shoes have a lot of technology incorporated with the shoe that make it what it is. It's very breathable. As you can see here, it's a mesh siding, which allows for the players' feet to be kept cool while they're playing. On the side, there are high-tension cables, which add to the support of the shoe, but because there's less material, it decreases the weight of the overall shoe. There's a Lunarlon foam cushioning on the inside of the shoe, which it responds very well to foot movement, so it allows the player to cut and jump and things of that nature relatively easy in comparison to the other shoes. And also, there's a 3D midfoot shank inside of the shoe that allows for better cutting and jumping, like the Lunarlon foam cushioning on the insides. The advancement in this shoe is the designers wanted to incorporate a lot of technology and present-day things into their shoes instead of just having it be based on materials. So now Connor will come up and explain the development of Nike cleats.
Now that we've heard a little bit about basketball shoes, my talk is going to focus on a different area of Nike footwear, which is the athletic cleat. To start, I'll begin with a bit of a history of the cleats. King Henry VIII of England, he was a big sports fanatic, and the first record of cleats being used in athletics was back in his kingdom in the 16th century. As you can see here, they're leather cleats, and they also had leather spikes, so they weren't very, the materials were not suitable for sports, but it was the best they had. So in the 19th century, the invention of synthetics like plastic really contributed to the development of cleats. So as you can see here, the plastic were more lightweight, gave the player a better grip on the ground, and it also didn't soak up water and make the cleats heavier like the leather did. There are two main purposes to cleats in athletics, and that is to prevent slipping and prevent injury. The way that cleats prevent slipping is the actual cleat digs down into the ground and provides better traction than a flat bottom shoe. There are also purpose is to prevent injury. So the way they do that is there are different types of cleats made for different surfaces. For example, if you're playing on a soft surface like grass and it's wet, you're going to want to use a longer cleat, a metal spike that can dig further into the ground and provide you with better traction. On the other hand, you might be playing on turf where you don't want to dig too deep, and that's when you come in with soccer cleats with short plastic spikes that are rounded. They won't dig in as much. They still provide you with a grip on the ground, but you're not going to get your foot stuck in the ground. Now that can happen. There are consequences to using the wrong type of cleats on the wrong surfaces. For example, if you were to use this metal cleat on turf, there is a chance that there's a high risk for knee and ankle injuries. This is because of something called rotational moment of inertia. There's an equation for that is your mass times gravity times the turn radius divided by time. Now what that means is that the quicker you make a turn and the smaller your turn radius is, the higher the risk for injury there is. So now with these cleats, you're going to get a better grip. You are going to be able to turn quicker, so that will raise your rotational moment of inertia, which basically increases your risk of injury. So it's really important that you use the right type of cleats on the right surface. Now Nike, knowing this, came up with a whole new design for cleats with spikes that can be taken in and out, removable cleats. There are mostly in lacrosse and football where the surfaces change from turf to grass from game to game. You never know what type of weather there will be. They're played in all sorts of weather. There are cleats that can be taken in and out. There are longer spikes for on the days when you're playing on grass and it's been raining, or there are shorter spikes for the days when you're playing on a turf field. Now, another benefit to that is cleats on the bottom of your shoes will obviously wear down over time. Now, with the removable spikes, what you can do is when they wear down, you can just take them out and put in new spikes instead of having to replace the entire shoe. It's much more beneficial, much more cost-friendly. Cleats will last a lot longer. So now I'm going to go through sort of an evolution of Nike cleats. The first ever Nike cleat was a soccer shoe called the Nike. It was introduced in 1971, and it's really like a rough beginning to what Nike's become. There were barely any spikes on the bottom of it. It didn't provide much grip. It was a rubber bottom on the shoe, and with that, the rubber bottom, they realized that if they were to make rubber spikes, that would be more beneficial to the athlete. So what they did this shows like Nike's ingenuity. They came out with what's called the Nike Moon shoe before the track and field trials in 1972. As you can see on the bottom, there's very interesting shapes for the rubber spikes. This is because the inventors of this shoe actually poured a liquid rubber compound into a waffle iron to produce these square rubber spikes that you see on the bottom of the shoe. This actually became a very popular design, and it's called the waffle outsole. It was seen on basketball shoes, track and field, and soccer shoes in the late 70s and early 80s. So now, of course, an athlete who's wants to wear cleats in competition, they have a few criteria that they're looking for. One is lightweight, one is support for your ankles, one is the injury prevention and the traction that it provides. So here there's a picture of a high top cleat versus a low top cleat. There's sort of you have to find a balance for you, because the high top cleat will provide you with more ankle support, but also because it's more sturdy and the more materials used, it will be heavier. So there's sort of a trade-off there. You can also go with a low top cleat where your ankles are at more risk, but it's going to be more lightweight and easier to maneuver in. So when Nike comes out, Nike has so many different designs to meet every player's needs, and that's why they're the leader in cleats.
With these developments that we've just shown you, it's very clear how they have such an impact on American media today. For example, in Like Mike, the shoes that Michael Jordan were apparently his first pair of shoes were actually shown to be Nikes. In Forrest Gump's first pair of running shoes were Nikes. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Nike actually developed a shoe called the Ferris Bueller, which is shown above. And the Marty McFly's, the most expensive Nike shoe, was shown in Back to the Future in the first movie.
To conclude our presentation, we have a video illustrating all the developments and evolutions that Nike has made in their shoes over the years.